Two things are really, really important. Keep talking to people. It's so important, networking. You don't know what door will open to you if you talk to people. The second thing is, learn, have that growth mindset.
Welcome to Startup Physicians. Please like and follow our show to join our community of physicians who are reimagining healthcare delivery.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Startup Physicians. I'm your host, Dr. Allison Kerfman, and I am joined today by a colleague, Dr. Hansa Bhargava. She is an incredible physician who has had an amazing career throughout multiple different facets of industry and is such an incredible inspiration to me and to so many other physicians. And so, Hansa, thank you so much for joining me today.
Allison, thank you so much, and for those kind words. Really appreciate it.
So I would love if you could start off by telling us a little bit about your career journey.
Yeah, of course. So like you, I'm a board certified pediatrician, and, my heart was always about taking care of families and, maximizing potential of health. Like that was why I went into pediatrics. I worked in clinical practice as a hospitalist, in the ER, in urgent care, teaching residents. So I did all of that actually for about 10 years. And then basically during my pregnancy of carrying twins, which was a really rough pregnancy for me, I'd undergone fertility treatments as well. And, had multiple episodes where I was hospitalized during that pregnancy, doing those long shifts. Actually, it was a light bulb moment. What am I doing? I still remember this one time where it was flu season and I was pregnant and I had not had time to go to the bathroom or eat anything. And I was just sitting there and I'd seen 30 patients already and there's 3 more hours to go in the shifts and I was like, oh my God, how am I going to get through this? Right. And then also, I do think this is important. And, for parents out there, also, when my kids were about 3 or 4 years old, they started asking me, why aren't you home for bedtime? Why aren't you here on a Saturday? Why aren't you at my soccer game? And I started thinking, I don't know if this can actually work long term. So it was the confluence of just all of those factors. And of course, our health system and all the issues it has that led to my burnout. Yeah.
So I just want to highlight a couple of things that you said that I think a lot of people relate to. So first off, I totally hear what you're saying about being, pregnant, training, all of those things, still working. For those of you who don't know, I have 4 kids myself. I had almost all of them during my residency and fellowship. Never once had maternity leave. But I always worked up to the very last minute because I wanted to have like a little bit of time off if I used all my vacation. So I literally almost had my 3rd kid like in the pediatric ER. I think I made it to the actual adult hospital with like 25 minutes to spare. But, we push ourselves so hard and we almost put that on a pedestal in training and in medicine. Like, oh, we're going to, pull these like 30-hour shifts and we're going to, see so many patients and that's celebrated. But when you look at like overall wellness of you as a physician and you as, trying to be a healer of people, it's like, how can we heal other people when we're kind of, just running on steam? And I too felt the pull of, how do I balance, a career as a physician with this family that I'm trying to start and put really front and center. And I think that the thing that has been so clear to me in every job, in every career stage, everyone that I've ever talked to, that a lot of happiness is rooted in how much control you have over your own time. Because when you're working a job that has very little flexibility and it tells you when to be where, and you don't have a lot of ability to kind of create and design your life, that is when I see people feeling the most burned out. And I think that we all have the opportunity to truly design our lives. And even if it takes a leap of faith sometimes, or a intentional decision to make less money. I have had at least 3 or 4 points in my life where I made an intentional decision to make less money to go create something else. And every single time it has turned out very well. So I just wanted to highlight so many things that you're already sharing about, your early stages and what made you make a change, because I think that is just probably resonates so much with this audience.
Yeah, and Allison, I'm just going to echo the whole thing about why do we feel like we have to prove ourselves over and over again, the badge of honor of doing that long shift. Like I talked to my physician colleagues, and I still have a friend who's an OBGYN, best friend from med school, right? And she's like, she's stressed out. She's in her 50s and she's stressed out a lot, but she will still say, well, I saw this many patients and that many patients. And I'm like, yeah, but your back hurts and your neck hurts. And like, why are you still trying to prove yourself, right? So that whole badge of honor, I'm not sure where that philosophy comes from, but
well, the really funny part is I felt like my entire training, despite the fact that we were working like 80 hours a week, and my husband and I would literally like take call every other night from each other and just hand off the baby in between. Like we'd bring the baby up to the hospital to like hand off to the post-call person. And we were also being told the entire time by a generation ahead of us, like, you guys don't work enough. You guys have it easy. You have work hour restrictions, which only applies really to interns. And they kept everyone else at 80 hours a week. Like, is that really like lazy? So I simultaneously felt like I was like totally burning both ends of the candle and was being told that like we had it much harder than you.
Yeah, it's so interesting because obviously burnout is systemic, right? But there's so much that we have ourselves, right? And to your point, like when we lose control of how we spend our time and we don't take those intentional decisions, right? Yes, I took a pay cut too. Like when I left full-time clinical medicine, I did take a pay cut, and it was okay because that was an intentional decision. So I totally, that really resonates with me. And the other thing is, Allison, I do wonder, and I wonder what your thoughts would be about this, to be actually a hybrid physician or doing things that actually like give you joy in addition to your clinical medicine, like couldn't that be one of the solutions to burnout? To be able to have that joy. And I'll tell you how I did it. Like when I was getting burnt out, I reached higher. I wanted to be on system committees for protocols for the hospital. I started working with kids who had disabilities. Like these are things that gave me joy, and therefore I was somehow less burnt out, even though the health system hadn't changed anything.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I still practice clinically. I work in 3 different ERs, but I choose my shifts and I choose when to do that. And I love it still. I think that all of these concepts are so important. It's one of the things I really try and emphasize to people. You can design your own life. You can choose to take a different path, even if it will temporarily change your financial situation. You can choose to practice medicine on your own terms. And there is a world of opportunity out there that of other places and people that need doctors and need their input. So I really appreciate that perspective. And I'd love to hear what happened next for you.
Yeah. I'm sorry, before I tell you that, I would just add one more thing to that list. And it is that you don't have to go and get a second degree or certify in something else to change your path.
That is true. I agree completely. A lot of people, we are very trained as doctors to feel like you need another fellowship, you need another degree. Should I go get an MBA? And I almost feel like it's just it's a comfort object for us. Like I'm just going to go get some more letters after my name, and I'm going to pay another, tens of thousands of dollars for more degrees. And truly, they need you now. You have what they need. So
yep, absolutely. So I got burnt out and I started looking, and, I was approached by a recruiter, who was actually working with this health media company. And he couldn't tell me who it was, but they were looking for a director to run their new partnership with a big Midwest hospital system for fighting pediatric obesity. And so, I walked into that building. It was actually WebMD. And I was like, I just had this gut feeling. I was like, oh my God, like I'd done work in obesity before. It was my passion to help. My passion was always public health and prevention. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, can I actually do this? And to me, the appeal was that was not just treating one patient at a time, but like millions of patients.
I call it the one-to-many impact.
It was really, honestly, Allison, just being at the right place at the right time. But knowing enough to, and I know you know this, when you are talking to industry, when you are trying to potentially have an opening for yourself, it's very, very important for us as physicians to be able to pitch ourselves. And so that was really an important learning in that whole interview process. And I'll tell you, the reason is that they kept asking me, they're like, well, have you published any books? Because they were a news organization. They wanted authors and they wanted people who had published books or have like literally 50 or 100 publications academically. And I didn't have any of those, But what I realized was that I did have value. And so I talked about the publication that the hospital had put forth in terms of protocols for fever less than 3 months, for concussions. And I talked a lot about that. And I talked about the work I had done, in education and, patient education, the programs I developed. And so that was, enough. So I think the learning from that is basically, what's in your background that you can actually, present in a way that actually shows your value. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's so funny. It's like almost like you have like taken my course. We spend the whole first week about defining your narrative, which that's, pitching yourself. Like, what do you have to offer and how are you unique? And then we spend time focusing on transferable skill sets. So it's exactly what you just said. Like, what do you already know how to do? What do you have evidence of being things you've done? You've improved processes. You've trained residents. You've educated people. You've found some QI project. QI is very transferable. You just have to like frame it in a different way. And all of a sudden it's a skill set. It's a true skill set that matters to industry. I just never knew some of these things were actual skills.
We didn't. That's not where our training is, right? So I go over to WebMD as a medical director, and that project lasts for about 3 years. I loved it. It was amazing. And here's the thing, Allison, again, back to that, do I need another degree? Do I need to have another certification? That was my fellowship in journalism. That's how I view my years at WebMD. Fellowship in journalism. And I learned so much. And I will tell you, I could tell you so many funny stories, but I remember being asked to write for the WebMD magazine, right? And the editor-in-chief, who was an amazing, super talented woman, said, okay, well, we'll try this, Hansa, but you don't really have any experience writing a column. And I was like, okay, but I still want to try. Again, be willing to try those things, right? And so I still remember, Allison, like the first time I wrote an article for that magazine, and she was hardcore. She literally sent it back to me, and then I'd write it again. She'd sent it back to me. And after about the 5th iteration, I was like, oh my God, like I have this medical education and I can't write an article that is patient facing. I mean, is this actually happening to me? But it was very similar to when I was in residency and I worked on a research project, and my supervisor kept sending my abstract back and I had to write it. Do you remember that experience? Like the research paper and the abstract?
It is an iterative process to write anything.
Right?
And sometimes the hardest thing is to be able to find the words to give it in layman's terms or in a way that people can really understand.
Totally. So anyways, so I became a writer. And the reason I became a writer is honestly because of my fellowship. Or I would call it experiential learning. Like she really coached me, and now I can write. I write for Forbes. I write for a lot of other organizations. Obviously at Helio, that's my day job, and so that's it's been wonderful. So very again,
So it sounds like you had some transferable skill sets, and then once you got out there, you developed a whole lot more skill sets.
Absolutely. So
and that probably led to the next jumps you made.
Yeah. So the next jump was that project ended, in about 3 years. And so then I started getting, again, another, I learned these skills along the way, and I'm sure you did too, Allison, because it's not in our medical school training, right? And one of the other skills that I think is very important that I think has helped me in my career is just to talk to people. Like I was in this new world, but there was a technology department, there was a PR department, there was a marketing department, there was a journalism department, and so I just was very lucky to talk to these people. So I got pulled into projects, that weren't necessarily on my job description, but I was always saying yes because I always viewed it as an opportunity to learn more skills.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And I tell that to people too, if they're just starting with startups and maybe they get their first almost trial thing where it's maybe they're working with a pre-seed company or pre-revenue company that can't pay them as much. It's still in knowledge exchange. I actually knew when I was making this big leap to quit my job, have my husband quit his job and move our family of 6 to another state to work at this private equity firm. I was there is a chance this company will never launch. There is a chance. I don't think it's going to happen, but there is a chance that it will never work and I won't start a startup. But I still think that the experience of being able to work at this firm for a year, I will come out ahead because I will know so many other things that I can do.
Totally. And that's the thing, take that leap of faith. Don't be fearful. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Who cares, right?
I always think of it if that doesn't work out, I'll do something else. I'm really good at finding things to do.
Exactly. So I got pulled into developing, they were developing the pregnancy app, they were developing the baby app, they were developing the symptom checker. And so I got pulled into the software development mobile apps, not just for content, but actually understanding the process.
And co-developing technology and understanding how developers work and how their standards are going to be very, very different than our A++ standards as physicians, because software development works better when you get a minimum viable product out there and use user feedback to test and iterate.
100%. And that language may not be something that we're used to as doctors, but you learn it along the way, I think that was really fortunate again. And then there was another project that I got pulled into, which is a maternity project, postpartum triage, using SMS texting for that, using AI. So my interest grew in all of those directions as I got pulled into these projects. So I knew that I was super interested in AI and technology. And so I started kind of going down that road.
That's awesome. So what is Helio? Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started there and what sort of work you do there?
Absolutely. So while I was at WebMD, the sister company is Medscape. And so one of the other things I did was I kind of reached over to the other side and said, hey, I'm here. Is there anything you need me to do? So I got involved with some of their projects, which eventually ended up being Medscape asking me if I wanted to come over to be the chief medical officer. So I did that. And that was an amazing experience again, because they actually wanted me to take more of a business development role. So I did that. I was there for, I believe, 2.5, 3 years. And then basically when I left, I knew a lot of people in the industry and eventually ended up joining Helio. But I wanted to be in a different direction. I had already done the chief medical officer. So I talked to them and they were very open. And I took on the role of chief clinical strategy and innovation officer. So I've been at Helio for about a year now, and I love it. It's I call them a smaller version of Medscape, which is amazing because smaller companies, as you well know, Allison, have ability to be agile and pivot with the times.
Absolutely. And what stage would you say Helio was in when you came over? Were they operating already with contracts, or were they pre-revenue, pre-seed?
Yeah, they're a family-owned business. They've been around for many, many years. They're a medical education company, but they wanted to kind of work on, in the new direction of AI innovation and branding themselves in that direction. So I've been helping with that. Also, very, very importantly, which I loved about them, was that they really were worried about physician burnout. And, they really wanted to figure out a way to kind of help doctors. And so one of their big products that I helped launch was Helio Community, which is actually really focused on two elements. One is the well-being of doctors, physical, mental, emotional. So we have a lot of content, videos, and interactivity, like a community literally on that. The second thing is they help doctors find new tracks. So basically their entire life. So I'm a doctor. I need help with physical wellness, emotional wellness, but I also need help with, where do I want to go next? Do I actually want to go down a different career track? Also, do I need somebody to help me with contracts? How do I understand, what my legal rights are? So all of these things are part of being a doctor. The new track is particularly interesting. That's where the innovation comes in. We've established a health tech community. We're actually doing webinars on physician entrepreneurship as well as health tech. We are probably going to be putting together an AI curriculum. So I'm just really excited because just like you, Allison, I'm a creator. So I'm helping develop some of those things. Yep.
That's amazing. And did you go into this as a top-notch AI expert with a, robust degree in development and computer science?
Oh my God. I wish I could say that. I always laugh about how I'm the dumbest girl in the room or the dumbest person in the room. But I don't mind because it's all of what you said. Like when you sit in a room with people that are working on something that is brand new to you, you get to be a learner, right?
Yeah.
Like you get to absorb all that.
And nobody expects you to know the stuff. Like I remember I walked into the firm and I was like, I don't know anything about that. And they were like, yep, that makes sense. Let's teach you. But then you're considered the expert on everything clinical, which is true. Because guess what? Every single doctor who's managed to make it through training has a lot of experience, has seen thousands of patients, has incredible depth of knowledge, and a very unique perspective on what's working or not working in the healthcare system.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Allison. I think I've talked on panels about doctors being involved with AI development, with health tech, and it comes down to three things. One is it's super important for doctors' clinical experience to be part of that product development. Why? Because ultimately it's patient outcomes, but even for the company bottom line, like you want that MVP to be as good as it can get, right? Then the second part where a doctor is super important in any of these startup companies is integration. So you can develop like thousands of AI tools for healthcare, but if it doesn't get integrated, it's dead in the water, right?
And that is where I feel like when it comes to developing technology, the physician voice is so needed. I have seen so many tech companies that develop something that maybe didn't get the right clinical input up front, and what they ended up developing didn't solve the right problem.
100%. So product, workflow integration, and then the last part, which is particularly important, especially with AI, and I do have an understanding. I have taken Anthony Chang's some of his courses on AI, and just through my travels, is that AI is not one and done. So especially with machine learning, especially with LLMs, it's super important for somebody to maintain that AI, and there must be a clinician at the table to make sure that it doesn't go off the rails and that there is constant, oversight of the product for both data integrity, but also as machine learning kind of evolves to make sure that it stays on track for the outcomes that you wanted in the first place.
Yeah. And it's such exciting work. I mean, I think that AI is something that there's no doubt it's going to massively change and transform the way we deliver care in the very near future. If you feel like it was an uncomfortable pace of change post-COVID with implementing so much telehealth and digital health, like get ready because it's going to be a very uncomfortable pace of change. But that's why I feel like you do, that it's so important for physicians to come over to this side and to get involved. There is a huge demand and huge need. I keep kind of trying to validate my hypothesis when I started this whole podcast and course and everything. I spent a lot of time with venture, and every time I talk to someone, I'm like, training these doctors, I feel like there's a huge need for them. And they're like, oh my gosh, sign me up. Where do I get them? They all want access to well-trained clinical expertise. And it's not just that they want the person who wrote the New England Journal of Medicine article on their, very specific thing. They want people who are able to think in a startup sort of way. So they want, you at baseline, being a physician, have a deep clinical background that would be valuable to a company in your field. It's the question of, do you know how to adapt to a changing environment? Do you know how to, determine those transferable skill sets, sit in a room and be, quote unquote, the dumbest person in the room, and treat it as like an incredible opportunity to be a sponge and develop all these new skills. And I think can you help co-develop technology and use design thinking, which none of us were trained on, but you can learn it. And I think that those mindsets are what I'm really trying to instill in physicians to position them for success in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the growth mindset, to understand that we didn't just have like, okay, now I finished residency. Okay, now I finished fellowship. Okay, now I'm an attending, and that's the end of the road. It is not. It is the beginning of the road, because we have such valuable experience and we have such capacity to learn. Like, we are leaders and learners from the very outset. And so I'll just reiterate what you said, Allison. Like, we need our colleagues to come to the table. And again, like, some colleagues will say to me that, oh, but I don't want to leave clinical medicine. You don't have to. Like, I was on staff for a very long time while I worked at WebMD, while I worked at Medscape. I was doing ER shifts.
Yeah, me too. I'm going to work in the ER next week, all week.
You can do it all. I mean, just maybe not at the same time. That's true for parenthood too. But right, Allison? I mean, we're moms and we're parents, and like, we can do it. It's just having that growth mindset and the positivity, I think.
Yeah, that's an amazing point. And I feel like you and I really resonate on the same wavelength. And as we wrap up, I'd love to know if there's any kind of last, takeaways or action items that you want to share with the audience.
Yeah. And so I would say two things are really, really important. Keep talking to people. It's so important. Networking. You don't know what door will open to you if you talk to people. The second thing is, learn, have that growth mindset. And lastly, I'm just going to make a plug for Helio.com community. So come join us, but also come join the health tech group if that's what you are interested in, or another group. We are really hoping to embrace the doctor and be there for you. And if anybody's interested in AI, come join us in November at AI Med. It's a great conference. 75% are doctors. And a lot of them are just trying to get into this new world of AI. So you'll meet a lot of great people.
Really fun. I'll try to go.
Sounds great.
So awesome. Well, if people want to get in touch with you, is LinkedIn the best way to find you?
Absolutely. LinkedIn. I'm also on Instagram, but LinkedIn is the best.
Awesome. Well, we will include your LinkedIn in the show notes and the links to the groups that you were talking about and your website. So thank you so much for joining us today. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm sure everyone else did too. And I really just appreciate you joining us.
Allison, thank you so much for the opportunity.
All right. See you later.
Thank you for listening to Startup Physicians. Don't forget to like, follow, and share.